Hello, welcome back to Naxos Classical Spotlight and music by Florence Price. From an album that features violinist Fanny Clamagirand and pianist Han Chen, together with the Malmö Opera Orchestra, all conducted by John Jeter, who is my interview guest today. That opening music is from the Violin Concerto No. 1. Here's a bit more. It's with a project to do with Florence Beatrice Price, who comes from the area where you live now, right?
Yeah, she was born and raised in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a couple hours. I mean, I'm in Fort Smith, Arkansas. So yeah, same state. And she was born and raised here. She went off to school on the East Coast for her college years, and then lived another 20 years, working, teaching in Arkansas, and then eventually moved up to the Chicago area.
So how did somebody who wrote almost 400 pieces be completely outside of people's consciousness for so long?
She definitely had a lot of obstacles that had to do with race, prejudice. She was recognized as a wonderful composer during her lifetime, but yet afterwards, people just sort of forgot about her. Also, just in the history of classical music, if you want to call concert music in the 20th century, I think that her style of music, which is very beautiful, very relevant, very tonal. If you were a serious composer, your music was very edgy, right? It was very modern. And, there was only really a limited audience for it at the time, but that was considered part of the validation of being a composer, right? This very, very spiky music. So I think stylistically, her music just sort of was not looked at. Also, there was just no history with her afterwards. There was no publisher. There was no one who was really taking care of continuing to tell people about her musical legacy. So as unfortunate as it was understandable.
When did you become acquainted with her music?
This would have been probably around 2015 or 16. There was and is a huge archive of her manuscripts at the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, Arkansas, which is 1 hour away from me. And some people who were in the music department there said, "Hey, there's all this. Did you know there was all this music here?" I had heard the name before, and I had the opportunity to go up and look at all this music and all the scores and all that. This was before G. Schirmer decided to represent her and own her catalog. It was this opportunity to go up there and see all this music. I mean, there was a lot of it. So seeing that, looking at the scores, playing them a bit on the piano was like, wow, this is definitely, this is a composer that needs to be, rediscovered, revisited.
So you mentioned scores. Were you looking at manuscript parts, or it sounds like it was things were only recently published. So how did you get the scores for the various pieces?
These were her handwritten, maybe handwritten orchestral scores. So I recall a sketch for the Second Symphony. There was the Fourth Symphony, which of course had never been performed during her lifetime. That was there. I think maybe the violin concertos were there, and I could see a lot of the piano music and other things, but I was a little bit more focused on these orchestral works, and they were all written in her hand. And we took pictures. I remember a fellow at the music department, James Greason, and we had little digital cameras, and we just took pictures of every page of the symphonic works that were there. And the idea was for me to take a look, have some time to take a look at it at home and to look into the possibility. My first thought was, well, let's see about recording this, because at this time we had just finished our William Grant Still project for Naxos.
Tell me a bit about some of the pieces. I mean, the violin concerto, the first violin concerto is, well, you talked about it being her style being romantic. This is lush and melodic, and frankly, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and it's a big piece. You know, it's about 30 minutes in length. Was completed in 1939. We don't, as with so much of her music, we really don't know the circumstances exactly, you know, why these things were written. But it is a very expansive work, especially the first movement is almost 20 minutes in length. It's definitely it definitely comes from the Romantic era. There are a few funny moments in the concerto where she's loosely referencing the Tchaikovsky violin concerto. Actually, maybe not even so loosely. I think she had studied that score and had heard it a few times, and it was definitely. I think it influenced her as far as the overall shape of the work.
Hmm.
Uh, but it's a very beautiful work. It is absolutely a wonderful fusion of romantic era music with some undertones of the blues. No question about it. You hear that a lot in the second movement. And yeah, you're right. It's a beautiful work, and it's interesting. It unfolds very slowly, but I think it keeps the listener really engaged, because she was such a great melodist, I guess you call it. So she wrote incredible melodies that definitely are, you know, it's definitely the American experience. Maybe it's the Southern experience a little bit
Hmm.
with this overtone of romanticism, late romanticism. And you're right, very beautiful.
So the second violin concerto, it's a somewhat different uh, era. I mean, it's different sounding, more dramatic, more contemporary for sure. But talk to me a bit about her harmonic language. It's fascinating. It's a little, is that the blues and other influences, or it's
Yeah,
unexpected sometimes?
right. Well, she loved big chords, seventh chords, ninth chords, 11 chords, even higher. So you'll get chords with her that go all the way up to where you end up back to the same maybe root of the chord, because she just keeps going. That may be from her experience as an organist. You know,
Hmm.
that's one of the cornerstones of the organ repertoire, is keep piling up those thirds, right?
Right.
And she loved to alternate the chords. When she had chords that were, say, a ninth chord or like an 11th chord, there are so many notes there that you can use as a pivot note to go to somewhere else. So it's interesting. It can create a very sort of you don't know where you're going feel. But
Hmm.
then also she has the opportunity to make like a direct change in harmony that makes a lot of sense, even though it's maybe coming from a dissonant chord. Like how could she get from this key to this key. Well, she had a lot of options with these huge chords. They also, depending on how she would choose her notes, there could be a lot of dissonance there, but it would be real easy to maybe even change one pitch a half step and give you some consonants. So there's
Hmm.
this, yeah, you're right. There's this constant change and a constant feeling of surprise. Like I'm not sure where she's going to go. In traditional music, going back, going to a Brahms or a Beethoven or whoever, if you take a little time listening to the music, even if it's a piece you haven't listened to before, you can kind of guess maybe kind of sort of where it's going, kind
Right.
of, or where it goes somewhere. And say, okay, that was I'm not. It was beautiful. I'm not super surprised. It makes sense to go there. With her, it's like, well, where did that come from? But there's still a romanticism there. So it's not that edgy, dissonant language that comes. It was already happening during like when this piece was written in 1952, I think. Right? I don't
Right.
even think she heard it. She died in 54, so 53, excuse me. So I don't think she heard the piece performed during her lifetime. But its second concerto is an excellent piece. It's very, it's about 15, 16 minutes long. It's very compact. And
Hmm.
she puts a lot of emotional language in this piece. It feels really complete. It's a very satisfying work. In fact, you're like, you mean it's over? It's over now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she was a pianist, and she must have been a pretty good pianist because I understand she actually performed her piano concerto.
That's right. That's right. Another terrific piece. It's about the same length as that second concerto, but it's earlier. It's from the time period even before the first concerto, early mid 1930s. And to cut to the chase with that concerto, I think it's an absolute contender to be put on programs. Maybe instead of a piece like Rhapsody in Blue, it has that same sort of feel to it. And that's a great piece, don't get me wrong. But it's this tailor made work for, I think, lots of performances. It works well on a classical concert. The last movement with that Juba, which is so great, the Juba dance, it would work well on maybe a lighter sort of program. It's a very versatile concerto, three movements without pause, beautiful, introspective, slow movement with a great sort of duet between piano and oboe. Uh, that first violin concerto we talked about earlier, same sort of idea. There's a kind of an extended duet between violin and flute. You can see she liked to do that. But terrific piano concerto, and we're lucky because the score for that was lost for a long time. So when the piano concerto was performed previous to the rediscovery of her music, it was done in a version that had been reconstructed with the use of, I think, the piano part which existed and some isolated orchestra parts. So during this process with Schirmer rediscovering actual real scores, we now have in this recording and a few others that are out there the actual real orchestration, her version. And it's a terrific piece. And yeah, you're right. There's some tricky things in there. So she must have been. Well, she was in her lifetime. We have letters and commentary from people who say, yeah, she was an excellent organist and pianist.
There's one more piece on this album that was music of hers, but arranged by William Grant Still.
Right. Yeah. Dances in the Cane Breaks. I think those pieces, the original piano works, were pretty early. This work, I guess you could say it's a three movement dance suite, has really almost been known prior to a few years ago. It was considered a William Grant Still piece. He was sort of the front person for this. And the piece was available through William Grant Still Music. So really it was like, oh, here's this William Grant Still piece. Oh yeah, well it was from piano music by Florence Price, but it's a William Grant Still work. So those things have changed now to where I think we feel like there was really a both parties equally compose this work. It's a beautiful, fun piece, kind of lighthearted dances. Nimble feet is the first movement. The last movement is a silk hat and walking cane. It's sort of like during the early part of the 20th century, there was a style of music, a kind of a cakewalk, it was called, a very, very light style. And a really interesting, my favorite movement is the second movement, Tropical Noon. It kind of reminds me of like the Richard Rodgers Victory at Sea music, sort of this, I don't know, South Pacific sort of feel to it. You're going to people are going to listen to it and they're thinking, I need a tropical drink. I need a drink with one of those umbrellas and the straw. It just goes perfectly. But beautifully orchestrated. Of course, William Grant Still is an excellent orchestrator. But really fun pieces. I think that dances are actually getting a fair amount of performances now. It's beautiful. It can be done by orchestras of different abilities. So like a festival orchestra, a terrific youth orchestra could tackle some of the movements. Just as a note of interest, not that it may come across the way that I'm saying it, but I think I'm probably the only conductor who's conducted and recorded like everything that she wrote that has orchestra in it. So, and it's kind of a first time experience for me to have that overview of a composer, so completely. So it's been a really interesting project. There'll be something else I think we're going to talk about in a few months that maybe kind of ends things that works that include orchestra. She's absolutely worth listening to and enjoying, and it's so great. It's so great to think about talking about her in 2017, 18, and now. I mean, now everyone's performed her music, right? She's known, her name is known internationally. So it's been great to see that difference in what has this been, maybe 7 or 8 years. I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty fast. That's a huge. I don't know of any other sort of rediscovered, if you will, composer who's had that renaissance. No one comes to mind.
This was recorded in Sweden, right?
Yes, at the Malmo Opera House with the Malmo Opera Orchestra, and they were terrific to work with. They're kind of known, I think, in that part of Europe for the versatility. And if I could just mention our producer, engineer, editor, which Sean Lewis, fantastic, just absolutely great to work with. Sean is British, but he's been living and based in Norway in Oslo for a long time now. Just great. That can make such a huge difference. I've worked with a lot of great engineers for Naxos, and he was fantastic. And I wanted to mention him because I think sometimes I think the engineer producers, sometimes they don't get their due, I think, because they're in the background, they're
Yep.
doing what they do, but I mean, they really, as you know so well, makes all the difference, right?
You have been listening to music by Florence Price with two excellent soloists, Fanny Clamagirand violin and pianist Han Chen, together with the Malmö Opera Orchestra conducted by John Jeter. The music comes from a new Naxos album that features both of Price's violin concertos, her piano concerto, and Dances in the Cane Breaks, which is a set of short piano pieces that were composed by Florence Price, then orchestrated by William Grant Still. All of that on one album, Naxos catalog number 8.559952. That's all for this podcast. I hope you can join me next podcast. Until then, I'm Raymond Bisha. So long for now.